It's February 6th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with a local court's ruling on Samsung chair Lee Jae-yong. The heir to the South Korean conglomerate was acquitted of stock manipulation and accounting fraud charges in connection with a controversial merger nearly a decade ago. Monday's court ruling supports Lee's long argument that the merger was normal business activity. According to the OECD latest projections, the global economy will grow by 2.9% in 2024. But the global agency lowered South Korea's expected growth, pointing to high interest rates as well as high inflation. Britain's King Charles III has been diagnosed with a form of cancer. While the type of cancer has not been publicly revealed, the 75-year-old king began regular treatments on Monday and will postpone public duties during the treatment. Samsung chair Lee Jae-yong has been found not guilty of financial crimes connected to a 2015 merger. Now, Monday's acquittal is a huge relief for Lee, who's faced legal issues for years. Our Shin Ha-young starts us off.
The Seoul Central District Court acquitted Samsung Electronics Executive Chairman Lee Jae-yong on Monday at his trial for alleged accounting fraud and violation of the law on capital markets several times. The court held its hearing on Lee at 2 p.m., 3 years and 5 months after the Samsung chief was indicted in connection with the 2015 fraud case. The main issue in the trial was whether the merger process between two Samsung affiliates in 2015 was conducted properly. In 2020, Lee was indicted on charges of manipulating stock prices in the 2015 merger of two Samsung affiliates, Samsung C&T and Cheil Industries, in which 3 Samsung C&T shares were offered for 1 Cheil share. There have been accusations that Samsung Group management may have intentionally lowered the value of Samsung C&T to help Lee gain control of the company, as he was the largest shareholder of Cheil Industries. Last November, prosecutors demanded a 5-year prison sentence for Lee. They also requested a fine of 500 million Korean won, or around $375,000. Prosecutors say the manipulation caused losses for other investors and held Lee responsible for these. He also stands accused of involvement in suspected accounting fraud at Samsung Biologics, a subsidiary of Cheil Industries. The court also delivered not guilty verdicts for 13 current and former employees of Samsung who were indicted along with Lee. It stated that there was no proof of the charges, adding that the prosecution failed to sufficiently prove that the merger was unlawfully conducted to bolster the chairman's control over the company. The Associated Press reported that the latest ruling by the court could alleviate the legal troubles surrounding the Samsung heir. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The South Korean government is likely to announce an increase in medical school enrollment quotas today. Medical worker associations are against the measure, and junior doctors are gearing up to participate in a strike. Our Shin Yeon tells us what to expect.
An announcement regarding an increase in annual admission quotas at medical schools is expected on Tuesday to tackle doctor shortages in areas outside the capital, as well as in essential medical areas. The plan for the increase is expected to be unveiled after a 2 p.m. meeting on medical workforce policies. If decided, it will be applied from 2025 and will be the first hike in 19 years, as the quota has remained unchanged at 3,058 per year since 2006. Last week, the government laid out its medical reform plan, where it projected a doctor shortage of 15,000 by 2035. The increase in capacity is expected to be more than an initial estimate of between 350 and 500, possibly exceeding 1,500 doctors next year. The Korean Association of Medical Colleges said that an increase of 350 students in the enrollment quota for next year would be appropriate. Ahead of the government's announcement, the Korean Medical Association, which opposes expansion, held an emergency meeting last night. According to a survey conducted by the Korean Intern Resident Association last month, 86% of the respondents expressed willingness to participate in a strike if there is an expansion. In response, the Ministry of Health and Welfare announced a strong countermeasure. It is reportedly set to issue immediate return-to-work orders if doctors go on strike. It's also considering disciplinary action for those who do not comply with the orders. Yoon, Arirang News.
It shouldn't be just parents, but the whole country who is responsible for childcare. That's what President Yoon said on Monday. To ease parental concerns, after-school childcare services will be expanded to all elementary schools. Kim Do-yeon reports.
The South Korean government is expanding childcare services with its public after-school program called Neulbom Schools. This as President Yoon hosted the 9th livelihood policy discussion with citizens on Monday, announcing that the program, which is currently in its test phase at 459 elementary schools, will be expanded to all elementary schools nationwide by the second semester.
Parents care에서 이제는 public care, 즉 국가 돌봄으로 나아가야 합니다. 이 퍼블릭 케어를 정착시키려면 무엇보다 학교 역할이 확대되어야 합니다.
The program, which offers educational, arts, and sports activities to help with childcare, especially for households with working parents, started last year. The expansion will make all first-grade students eligible, moving beyond the current limited capacity and selection process. By 2026, it aims to include all elementary students. Additionally, schools will receive dedicated officials to oversee the program and help with the administrative side. It kills two birds with one stone when it comes to tackling the low birth rate. The cost of childcare and parents having to sacrifice their careers were two top reasons behind not having children, and the program tackles these. At the discussion were parents and teachers who touted the program, especially the fact that various arts and culture classes, such as ceramics, sports, and dancing, are offered too. Some suggestions were given too.
I believe the government has to allow specialized operation methods for the program depending on whether the area is rural or urban, and in the long term this will revitalize rural areas while children will enjoy the program more.
To this, President Yoon largely agreed. Referencing the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, he called on local experts in different industries to contribute to the program at schools around them.
이런 농촌형, 도시형 같은 지역 특색에 맞는 그런 교육 프로그램들을 다양하게 우리가 제공하고, 저도 그 재능 기부할 수 있는 게 있는지 한번 찾아보고 저도 한번 봉사활동을 하겠습니다. 감사합니다, 여러분. 고맙습니다.
President Yoon added that childcare itself is a part of education, especially for young children. And he wrapped up by saying that it's the government's duty to guarantee freedom for its citizens to be able to choose what they learn. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The OECD forecasts the global economy to expand by 2.9% this year. But it says South Korean economy will not grow as much as expected because of high inflation and high interest rates. Park Kwon-woo reports.
The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development revised its 2024 global economic growth projection upwards as it sharply increased its outlook for the United States. According to the OECD's latest interim economic outlook released on Monday, the global economy is expected to grow by 2.9% from an earlier estimated 2.7% made in November. However, the revised outlook is a slowdown compared to the 2023 annual growth of 3.1%, amid weakened growth momentum, continuous monetary tightening, and China's weak economic condition. The organization predicted the U.S. will continue its moderate 2.1% growth, a revision from its previous projection of 1.5%, due to weakening inflation and drops in interest rates. However, it said China's economy is expected to slow down due to its sluggish asset market and high debt, while keeping its growth projection of 4.7% made in November. As for South Korea, the OECD forecasts 2.2% growth this year, 0.1 percentage point lower than its previous projection in November. This year's figure is the same as that projected for 2024 by the government and the Korea Development Institute. Regarding inflation, the organization expects most countries to return to their targets by the end of 2025, as headline and core inflation rates gradually ease. The OECD kept its rate projection for South Korea this year at 2.7%. The organization pointed out the possibility of high inflation caused by geopolitical risks in the Middle East and debt burden caused by high interest rates as downward factors for the global economy. The OECD said countries need to be cautious with monetary policies and in securing fiscal soundness, along with making efforts to restore global supply chains and free trade throughout the year. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Taylor Swift once again stole the show at the Grammy Awards. Unfortunately, this year's edition was not a good one for a K-pop or K-pop artist. We're joined by Professor Bao Siju this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Taylor Swift made history yet again by becoming the first artist to win the prize for Album of the Year 4 times. Professor, does she deserve the honor?
Well, I think her fans believe that she does. She's really reached the hearts of people around the world, and she's undeniably a cultural titan. But I don't personally listen to her music, and considering that 4 of her competitors for Album of the Year were people of color, and it's been 25 years since a Black woman won Album of the Year, maybe it would have been more memorable and significant if a different nominee had won last night.
Well, it's not just Swift. Female artists also really proved themselves at this year's ceremony, from Miley Cyrus to Billie Eilish. What does it say about the music industry or trends nowadays?
I think basically there's a lot of exceptionally amazing female artists who are out there in the industry right now. And with this large number of women nominated and winning, I think it's going to encourage a new generation of young female artists.
Right, and that's also in line with the usual controversy of them being the so-called, all-white Grammys. How would you say it was this year?
Well, I really appreciated that Jay-Z talked at the Grammys about how the Academy still isn't getting it right. Women are recognized, but it just seems like the math, as he said, doesn't add up. And even though Trevor Noah was hosting again, and despite performances by non-white artists, it did not feel like we've left that white Grammy era behind. Personally, I thought seeing Tracy Chapman smile was the most memorable part of the entire broadcast, but that doesn't seem momentous enough to be the highlight of the biggest award show in music.
Definitely. Now, we have to talk about K-pop. Unfortunately, it didn't get any of the spotlight at this year's ceremony. What do you think might happened?
Well, the Grammys have always been primarily about the USA and to a certain extent English language music produced with an emphasis on the US market. And K-pop is focused on outward expansion, and it does want the approval of the US market, but it's also looking at the rest of the world. K-pop hasn't lost itself chasing an American dream. And in many ways, it's more global than the regionally focused artists at the Grammys. So BTS had this historic 5 nominations, and that was a great way for the Recording Academy to gesture at how up to the moment it was and a way to court new audiences. But it also seems like the Academy may not be aware that other K-pop acts exist. And in 2023, the story in K-pop was about girl groups, New Jeans, Blackpink, IVE, all these amazing groups that have been so dominant in K-pop. And it seems like in the best pop duo or group category, the Recording Academy usually nominates a solo artist with a featuring artist. And they really like people who write their own songs. And it just seems like K-pop somehow doesn't fit the Recording Academy model for a reward in this category.
Right, it does look like they do have their own qualifications when honoring those artists, especially within the U.S. But can we be hopeful that the next edition hopefully be a better one for K-pop and K-pop artists?
Well, I hope so. Korea has many world-class artists. If Boy Genius can win an award for alternative music, there's no reason why Hyeko couldn't be nominated for the same category. Korea has and continues to produce music of a caliber equivalent to what is honored at the Grammys. Will it happen? Could Hyeko take home a Grammy in 2025? I personally would like to see Asian and Korean representation as part of the televised section of the Grammys. But for that to happen, the Recording Academy and the U.S. listening public needs to shift to be less parochial and more global in their orientation.
Indeed, indeed. All right, Professor Seiji, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have a great day.
You too.
Britain's King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer. Now, the type of cancer is not yet known, but the king will take a break from public-facing duties. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Buckingham Palace said Monday that King Charles III had been diagnosed with cancer. The palace said that the medical tests revealed a form of cancer, but did not clarify what type of cancer King Charles was diagnosed with. However, royal officials said that the form of cancer detected was not prostate cancer. The remarks come after the 75-year-old monarch went to a London hospital for a corrective procedure for an enlarged prostate last month, leading to prostate cancer speculation. With Charles beginning treatment, he will take a break from his public-facing duties, as recommended by doctors, but will continue his official state duties. Other senior royals, including Queen Camilla and Prince William, will reportedly cover public engagements. Meanwhile, Prince Harry will travel to London to be at his father's side in the coming days. The Duke of Sussex's last appearance at a royal occasion took place in May during the coronation of King Charles. Harry moved to the U.S. with his wife Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, after they stepped back as senior royals in 2020. Since then, his relationship with some other royals has been strained. World leaders have expressed concerns over the cancer diagnosis, including U.S. President Joe Biden, who said he would be speaking with him soon after hearing of his diagnosis. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Washington on Monday highlighted its focus on close trilateral security coordination with Washington and Tokyo, and called Pyongyang's recent cruise missile launches deeply destabilizing. According to U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel during a press briefing, actions by North Korea also contributed to greater risk in the Indo-Pacific region, adding Washington will closely coordinate with its Asian allies. The comments come as the North has conducted 4 rounds of cruise missile launches this year, including a new type of nuclear-capable cruise missile. In a separate press briefing, Pentagon Press Secretary Patrick Ryder stressed the excellent relationship between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo, vowing to jointly confront evolving North Korean threats.
Good morning, I'm Kim Jeong, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. We begin today in the U.S., where California authorities are carrying out emergency rescue operations after a severe winter storm hit the area, causing substantial damage. NBC reports that at least 3 people have died in fallen tree accidents, and more than 415,000 homes and businesses are without power. What's called an atmospheric river hung over Southern California, with Los Angeles recording its rainiest day ever. Surrounding areas were also hit with heavy rain, near hurricane winds, with flash floods and landslides. The National Weather Service said on Monday that some 40 million were under flood, winter storm and high wind advisories, and that 10.4 centimeters of rain fell in downtown LA, breaking the record of 6.35 centimeters set in 1927. Now in tech news, the owner of Nasdaq-listed search engine company Yandex NV, often referred to as Russia's Google, struck a $5.2 billion cash and share deal on Monday to sell all its assets and operations in Russia to a consortium of investors. This solidifies Russia's grip on Yandex, which is owned by a Dutch parent company, as the Kremlin has been attempting to break it away from Western investors. The decision comes as the result of some 18 months of negotiations between the Kremlin and Yandex. Although Yandex's market capitalization was around $10.2 billion, the Russian government's mandatory demand of a discount of at least 50% to fair value involving foreign asset sales brought down the final price to half of its value. In 2021, before Russia invaded Ukraine, Yandex was valued at around $30 billion. Over to Pakistan now, where on Monday at least 10 police officers were killed and 6 injured in a pre-dawn attack by armed militants on a police station in Dera Ismail Khan, near the border with Afghanistan. The militants began the attack with sniper fire at around 3 a.m. local time, before entering the building armed with guns, grenades and rockets. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. However, Pakistan has seen a resurgence of attacks by Islamist militants since 2022, when a ceasefire agreement between Pakistani Taliban and the government ended. 2 months ago, a suicide bomber detonated a vehicle filled with explosives outside a police station in the same district, killing at least 23 and wounding 32. Now to El Salvador, where President Nayib Bukele won re-election on Sunday after securing a victory by a large margin. 42-year-old President Bukele has been credited with driving down El Salvador's gang violence, including the country's murder rate. Since coming to power in 2019, Bukele has transformed El Salvador from one of the most violent countries in the world to one of the safest in Latin America. His Nuevas Ideas party won at least 58 out of 60 seats in the National Assembly. Despite domestic popularity, Bukele remains a controversial figure for potential human rights violation related to anti-gang arrests.
Hello, I'm Lee Jae-yong with the latest weather updates. On and off snow and rain continued all day yesterday in the capital, and parts of Gangwon-do province, including Gangneung and Hongcheon, saw massive snowfall of more than 30 centimeters. Please stay safe on the road. Well, most of the snow has let up except in some southern areas and mountainous regions on Jeju, with more snow in the forecast for today. Starting off the day, 1 to 7 degrees lower than yesterday in most parts, then highs should go up to similar to Monday, hovering slightly above season norms. Seoul sees a high of 5 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Then Wednesday looks to be chillier but sunnier than today. Checking on today's highs for other regions, Daegu and Gwangju see highs of 7 degrees, Busan, Jeju topping out at 9 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Mostly cloudy skies are in store for most places today. Promising weather is on tap for the Seollal holiday weekend under much brighter skies nationwide, so the weather will not affect your travel plans. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Wednesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.